Hello Raptors fans, and welcome to Raptors Report. Today we're going to be doing a breakdown on two of the first round opponents the Raptors could face, the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll look at matchups, the likelihood of facing each team, statistics, and more. Let's jump in. On April 5th, with a win over the Atlanta Hawks and the Cavs losing to the Magic, the Toronto Raptors secured a playoff berth and can finish no lower than 6th. With the play-in tournament no longer a consideration, we can focus fully on the opponents that the Raptors could face in the first round of the playoffs. Last week, we looked at two potential playoff matchups for the Raptors in the first round, the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. Today we're going to be looking at the final two potential first-round opponents, the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. First, we'll be looking at the Miami Heat. Of the two potential first-round opponents remaining, the Heat are probably the team I would like to face the least. The Heat, for the majority of the season, have sat atop the Eastern Conference. Their combination of veteran leadership, scoring, playmaking, shooting, defense, and the excellent coaching of Erik Spoelstra have been a code too difficult to crack for the other teams in the league. The Miami Heat are a very good team, but they do have flaws. There's a phenomenon that I've noted over the years where if you try to build a roster around multiple players with significant weaknesses by trying to make up those flaws in other areas, you can run into trouble. That was one of the issues I had with the Knicks and Hawks entering the season. Both rosters have too many players that only play on one side of the ball. The Knicks have players that can score and they have players that can play defense, but they don't have players who can do both. The Hawks have a transcendent superstar on offense who happens to be literally the worst defensive player in the league. The Heat definitely aren't on that level. They're clearly a better constructed roster than either the Hawks or the Knicks, but they do have an Achilles heel that's tough to build around. Neither Jimmy Butler nor Bam Adebayo can shoot. Bam Adebayo has attempted 6 threes this season and has missed all of them, and Jimmy Butler is shooting an insanely bad 20% from 3, and he's attempted 100. The Heat front office has attempted to patch those holes by acquiring Kyle Lowry, who's been a reliable three-point shooter for the majority of his career, and they also have Tyler Hero, PJ Tucker, Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Dwayne Dedman, and Caleb Martin, a veritable murderer's row of knockdown three-point shooters. But as a result of that, they've added many non-defenders to the roster. Of those mentioned, only Lowry, Tucker, and Dedman are plus defenders. In addition to this, unlike the other top 4 teams in the East, the Heat do not have a true superstar. Lowry, as Raptors fans know, is a big difference maker. Jimmy Butler, when he's on, is a great two-way player. Bam Adebayo is a fantastic defender and rebounder as well as a heady passer on offense. But there is no guy that is truly at the caliber of a Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, or Giannis Antetokounmpo. The ace they do have up their sleeves is Erik Spoelstra. Spoelstra is arguably the best coach in the league, able to squeeze the best out of his players and create impressive game plans in order to win games, and he has a versatile roster that he can use to match up against anyone. In terms of matchups with the Raptors, there isn't anything that stands out other than the huge number of shooters that the Heat have access to. The Raptors love to help and recover, but against the Heat's plethora of three-point threats, that might be a game plan that they can't reliably execute. The Raptors have the personnel to slow down Butler, Lowry, Adebayo, and Hero on offense, but the same could be said for the Heat, who have defenders to slow down the Raptors' stars as well. What I alluded to earlier might be something that the Raptors could exploit. The Heat's reliance on poor defenders to stretch the floor could be a matchup that the Raptors could attack in the half-court. That's already how the Raptors like to play. Get a player in a matchup they like, and then put them into single coverage. The Heat are undoubtedly the masters of zone defense, however, and would likely counter those strategies by moving to a zone to help cover up the weaknesses of bad individual defenders. It would definitely be a chess match between two great coaches and smart teams, and an entertaining one to be sure. Next, in descending order, comes the Philadelphia 76ers. I think there's two tiers in the playoffs among the top 4 teams, with the Celtics and Bucks occupying the top tier and the Heat and 76ers being the lower tier. Joel Embiid is yet again having an MVP caliber season, being one of the very best players in the entire league. The Sixers also made the deal everyone had been predicting would happen for most of the season, and traded the malcontent Ben Simmons for star guard James Harden. Their third star is guard Tyrese Maxey, who is putting together an excellent sophomore season on the offensive side of the ball. Tobias Harris is another noteworthy player, although he has faced a lot of criticism for not living up to his contract and having consistency issues. Matchup-wise, the Raptors have a big issue: Joel Embiid. Embiid is huge, skilled, and is able to make smart passes out of double teams. The Raptors have game planned to shut him down in the past, but a lot of that has been due to having a capable defender who could guard him one-on-one, with both Serge Ibaka and especially Marc Gasol making his life miserable. Unless the center tandem of Precious Achiuwa and Khem Birch are able to at least slow down Embiid, the Raptors will have issues guarding the Cameroonian MVP candidate. On paper, the Sixers have one of the most dangerous tandems in the NBA, and decent role players at other positions to help fill in the cracks. There are two things that I'm skeptical about of the Sixers heading into the playoffs, however. One of the most consistently successful championship formulas over the years has been coupling a dominant scoring guard with a dominant big man. Harden and Embiid certainly fit into those two molds on the surface, but if you dig slightly deeper, you'll notice a dyssynergy between the two of them that might just cost them in the playoffs. James Harden this season with the Sixers is shooting almost 10 free throws per game. Joel Embiid is the league leader in free throws attempted at nearly 12 per game. The refs during the playoffs tend to be a lot stingier with their whistles. Will they really be comfortable sending the pair of Harden and Embiid to the line 22 times per game with Nick Nurse screaming at them? Harden also has a reputation for shrinking in big games. Will that continue? Can the Sixers fully count on their role players to step up? Well, those are all questions that they'd have to answer this playoffs. Speaking of Nick Nurse, I think that the Raptors, in a matchup with the Sixers, would have the coaching advantage. Doc Rivers is a veteran coach who's won a championship, but for those who have been paying attention over the years, has developed a rather poor reputation, especially in the playoffs. Doc Rivers has overseen many playoff collapses as a coach, and the Sixers succumbing to the underdog Hawks in 7 games last season after being thoroughly outcoached by Nate McMillan has to be one of the worst. You would have to think that in a long series versus the Raptors, Nick Nurse would find ways to exploit issues with the 76ers game plan. But would it be enough to win? Again, the 76ers record-wise are neck and neck with the other teams at the top of the East, meaning that the Raptors could potentially match up with them in the first round. Well, that about wraps up this week's episode of Raptors Report. Who would you most like to face in the postseason? What about the team you least want to face? Let me know here in the comments and also on Twitter, where you can reach me at Raps Report. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, as that helps the channel grow. And as always, thanks for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.